Well, good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you very much for joining us on the webinar this morning and for your interest in the South Korean market. It's much appreciated. It's now 5:30 p.m. here, late afternoon in Seoul, on what's been a pretty rainy couple of days, although brightening up a little bit now just to put you in the picture. I hope it's good where you are. As mentioned, my name is Clifford Bebb, or Cliff for short. I'm Head of Trade in the UK Trade and Investment team at the British Embassy here in Seoul. I've been in Seoul for nearly 4 years now myself, and my job over the next 60 minutes or so is to guide you through this session. Initially, we'll have 20 to 25 minutes of advice and opinion from our distinguished panel, then followed by the most important part, and that's answering your questions, of course. We have a couple of key goals for the hour, to bust a few myths, lingering myths and misperceptions about doing business in the South Korean market. And of course, we want to encourage you to take part in UKTI-led activity, Branded Opportunity Korea, in our market in 2013-14. You can see the panelists on screen there, our Ambassador Scott Wightman, Steve Duckworth, our voice from business, Vice Chairman of the British Chamber of Commerce here, who's also Managing Director for ERM in this territory, and then Douglas Barrett, Head of the UKTI team here in Seoul. So first up, I'd like to invite our Ambassador Scott to describe to you the main characteristics of the Korean economy in 2013 by way of useful introductory background. Scott, thank you.
But thanks very much, and I want to add my thanks as well to all of you who are taking time out to join us this morning. For those of you that haven't yet visited Korea, the thing to understand about it really is what a vibrant, modern economy it is. We've got 50 million people living in Korea, 25 million of them in the Greater Seoul area. They're living in a country that now has world-class infrastructure. It has the world's regularly voted #1 airport at Incheon. You can use high-speed rail connections to get to the other end of Korea in not much more than 2 hours, 45 minutes or so, and reach anywhere, any major city within Korea within that time. We are enjoying the fastest broadband speeds in the world here. So if you're thinking South Korea, if you want a sort of mental framework for South Korea, you need to think Tokyo. You need to think Gangnam style. It really is like that here. The Korean people are highly educated. 70 to 80% of high school graduates go on to attend university here. The Koreans are very, very committed to education. They spend somewhere in the region of 13% of GDP on education. And that in itself represents a really interesting export opportunity for the UK educational services. It's experienced a remarkable economic transformation. In 1960, per capita GDP in this country was the same as in Ghana, just recovering from the Korean War. And here we are just 50 years later, and we find that South Korea is the 12th largest economy in the world, with per capita GDP somewhere in the region of 30,000 US dollars. It's the outstanding example of economic transformation in the world, just an astonishing story, and a reflection of the Koreans' commitment, hard work, and vision and ambition, I think. Korea, of course, like other economies around the world, was affected by the global financial crisis in 2007-2008. But alone amongst the OECD economies, they'd have managed to avoid falling into recession, and it was the first OECD economy really to recover pre-crisis growth levels. In 2010, it experienced 6% growth. Growth since then has tailed off, reflecting the uncertainties in the global economy, and in particular in Korea's main export markets in the United States and in Europe. So in 2011, growth was 3.6%, and last year it was down to 2%. Growth this year is forecast at somewhere around 2.6%, with the risks more, I think, of that being revised upwards rather than downwards. This is very much an economy that has developed in the last 30 years as an export-oriented economy. It has now world-class global companies that are exporting all over the world. You know many of them as household names, companies like Samsung Electronics, LG Electronics. in the auto area, Hyundai now is a major global player. Its market share in the UK is growing significantly. In the ICT sector, you have companies like SK and KT. The shipbuilding sector, South Korea is really the leader in the world through operations like Hyundai Heavy Industries, which has the world's largest shipyard at Ulsan. So a country now and an economy that's involved in all sorts of different aspects of advanced manufacture. But we're also seeing these companies or affiliates within the companies becoming major global players in delivering construction and infrastructure, particularly energy infrastructure around the world. In each of the last 2 or 3 years, Korean companies have picked up between $60 and $70 billion worth of construction contracts. Korean companies are responsible for 60% of the energy infrastructure contracts in the Gulf. So any British company that manages to develop the right sort of relationship with contractors such as Doosan or Samsung Engineering or Hyundai Engineering and Construction, if you've got the right relationships with these sorts of contractors, then these companies have the potential to drag you into not just the Middle Eastern markets, but also Southeast Asia, Latin America, and increasingly also in Sub-Saharan Africa and Central Asia. So really interesting opportunities, both as an export market and as an opportunity to work with Korean companies in third country markets. Just a terrific opportunity for British business, I think, Cliff.
Thank you very much for those observations, Scott. Of course, it won't be lost on those tuning in that just 40 miles to the north of here, we have the DMZ, the border with the north. And obviously, North Korea's actions, or perhaps rather rhetoric, in recent times have caused a lot of negative media coverage in the UK and elsewhere. You were there, in fact, just last week, Scott. Can I ask you for your latest impressions on the situation with the North?
Yeah, well, I mean, first of all, on the crisis itself, I would answer crisis what crisis? It really was a manufactured crisis in my view. There was, at no time did we have any indications that North Korea was making preparations for conflict. I think its strategy all along was aimed at trying to secure international recognition of it as a nuclear state, which is not going to happen, and it was seeking as well probably to secure economic concessions from South Korea and others. The atmosphere in Seoul and throughout South Korea during that time that we had heightened rhetoric was calm, and it was the same that our colleagues at the British Embassy in Pyongyang in North Korea were reporting the same there. There was calm in the streets in North Korea as well. As some of you may have seen, there has been some talks in the last few days between North and South Korea. We're not quite sure where that's going to head. Let's wait and see. There may be some progress. It's equally possible that we'll see the North Koreans later on engaging in another bout of heightened rhetoric. I think the key point for businesses is that none of this affects the real business environment in South Korea. And what our analysts have now noted is that when we face these periodic periods of crisis, the Korean stock market now takes it in its stride. And for example, when the North Koreans test-fired a ballistic missile in December, we actually saw the local stock market increase. Analysts here are much more focused on the impact of Abenomics and monetary easing in Japan than they are on the impacts of the tactics of North Korea.
Thank you very much. Moving on, we're covering a lot of different ground in this 20 to 25 minutes, as I mentioned at the outset. We'd now like to ask Steve Duckworth, our representative from the British Chamber of Commerce in Korea, for your observations, Steve, particularly on the changing nature of the Korean economy, Korean companies, and Korean business culture.
Yeah, Cliff, I would be happy to address those issues. Just as way of background, ERM is an international environmental and health and safety consultancy headquartered in the United Kingdom. We've been operating here in Korea since 1999 and have a staff of 30. Now, we've seen a number of changes in the way that business has done since 1999, but I'm going to focus on, the business environment here and now in 2013. Now, I've just finished 2 days of marketing. ERM's had one of their international specialists, sector specialists, in Seoul. We've managed in the last 2 days 10 meetings, and I'm coming out of that quite upbeat because there's a range of opportunities that have arisen. And also I'm so pleased at how the meetings have gone, how we're welcomed into the meetings, how not only have clients talked to us about how we can help the individuals, they've also talked to us about other colleagues in their organizations who we should also speak to, which might open new doors for us. I'm certainly very upbeat at the moment. In terms of the internationalization of Korean businesses, Scott mentioned the engineering contractors working across Southeast Asia, Middle East, Africa, South America, Europe, the United States. They're very international. And in the conversations with one of those engineering contractors, they revealed today that 85% of their business is now international. Now, in order for the Korean companies to compete internationally, they have to operate and act to international standards in everything they do. And for us as a consultancy, they're interested in us bringing to bear our international experience in the areas of environment, health and safety, sustainability, to make them meet with international regulatory requirements and to be best of class in terms of the way that they operate and act, recognizing that excelling in those areas will help them meet with their international clients' requirements. In terms of contracting with Korean clients, of course, clients, I think it's the same the world over, and Korean clients are quite adept and skilled in terms of trying to draw information, prior to the formal contracting process has been completed. But the truth is, they know that international companies have to work with contracts. All ERM's work, we have provided scopes of work, task schedules, fees agreed in informal contracts. And a positive sign is that we have found that our Korean clients, where we've used their contractual terms, they have been willing to take on board the advice which has come from our legal departments and shown some flexibility in order to finalize the various contracts. In terms of the use of English in business, I mentioned that we've just come off 10 meetings over the last couple of days. We were able to use English as the primary language for the discussions in all of those meetings. There were staff and representatives from various management levels within the organization. And we worked, the English language was supplemented by my Korean colleagues, dealing with some terms in the discussions, but primarily we found that all the discussions could take place in the English language. In terms of ABC, anti-bribery and corruption, our clients work with very transparent bidding processes. We ourselves have to comply with the UK regulations. Now, we've worked with our suppliers, contractors, some of them very small and niche, to sign off on our terms and conditions around anti-bribery and corruption. And although there was, at times some explanation was needed to let our partners understand why we needed these terms to be signed, there was really no pushback. That was a very straightforward process. In terms of where business is done, there's some myths around doing business in Korea that it can only be done late into the evening after dinner with a table covered in bottles of soju. I think things have moved on significantly over recent years. Business is conducted during normal working hours, and if there is some informality or informal discussions held, it tends to be in a coffee shop, which you can readily find at the base of every building, office building. In terms of Korean priorities in business, making promises. Promises are made particularly around schedules. Our clients expect them to be met. And if that involves working all through the weekend, then I'm afraid that's what you'll have to do. So there needs to be some flexibility in terms of working practices, recognizing schedules that are really critical to Korean clients. And we've adopted our business practices in order to ensure that we can meet our clients' needs. Just to finish off, I mean, I've got a very positive overall impression of Korea. It's a very friendly and welcoming country. It's easy to get about using public transport. International food's easily available, so I think if visitors are coming into town, they can find any food that they may be interested in. English menus are also widely available in the restaurants. So, overall, a great place to visit, live, and of course, work.
Thank you, Steve, for those overwhelmingly positive reflections. Our third contributor is Douglas Barrett. Douglas, you've seen a great increase in UK exports, I think, of goods and services since you arrived in Seoul to lead the team around 4 years ago now. And very good for us has been the great increase in the number of UK firms our team is helping. Can you tell us more about what's going on and the reasons for it?
Yeah, absolutely. I'd like to say a very good morning to everyone. We've seen a real uptake in UK companies coming to Korea. We've helped over 1,100 in the past year, which is double the figure from just a few years ago. We expect to see that trend continue and to gather pace in the future, and we hope that some of the companies on the line will take a look at the market here. Our exports to Korea have really grown in the past year. That's thanks in part to the EU-Korea FTA, up an impressive 82% in the past year, or 15% if you strip out the oil export. And it's not all one way. From here to the UK, it's up 18%, so everybody benefits. And those benefits are felt across a really wide range of sectors that includes oil and machinery, medicines and pharma, road vehicles, and also many, many other sectors. Our exports have grown so well that we are now the second largest market in Asia, even greater than Japan or Singapore or any of the other established markets. So it is a really, really good place to come and export to. So who benefits from the EU-Korea FTA? Well, what it does is it radically changes the way that we do business. It was signed on the 1st of July 2011, and it radically changes the way that we do business. 97% of all tariffs will be gone by the middle of next year. Many were eliminated on signing. Many, many sectors have benefited. It can be legal and financial or automotive, pharma. Very, very big benefit in textile and in high-end fashion. If you want to benefit, you have to be an approved exporter. We'll put a couple of names at the bottom. If you want to write to us, we can give you more details on that as well. I want to say a word about our brand Britain. It sells really, really well. We're associated with quality and high-end, whether it's Paul Smith or Cab Kitchen, Rolls-Royce, Land Rover, all do really, really well here. On future activity, you'll see we've got something for everybody in the next 6 months, whether it's the printed electronics showcase that we've got, offshore wind or nuclear. Higher education does really well here, a very, very large spend on education here in Korea. The Global Sports Mission always does well. Winter Olympics will be here soon. Also fashion, food and drink. I really want to do the Great British Food and Drink Festival, a Great British Beer Festival, Great British Food Festival. So if you're into those markets, we would really, really welcome you coming. If you want any more detail, just drop us an email and we'll give you some more details. You know, all of us are back in the UK at various points. If you'd like to meet any of us or to discuss anything about how to do business here, we would be happy to meet you. On this slide, you'll see a really iconic view of Seoul. It's iconic, it's high-tech, it's taken from the Seoul Plaza Hotel. And if you were to come here, this was the view that you would see. For the eagle-eyed view, you'll see a small building to the left with the lights on, and that's us working into the night. So if you have any questions, we would be happy to take them. Thank you very much.
Thanks a lot, Douglas. You'll see on the slide there, ladies and gentlemen, that David Slatter, our marketing manager, can be your primary point of contact, but you can probably find the rest of us through the UKTI website pretty easily, or by Google searching for that matter. So we do look forward to hearing from you. We have some interesting information off the South Korea pages on the UKTI website, including reports on how the EU-Korea Free Trade Agreement can benefit you, 110 specific opportunities, a low carbon report. There's plenty of information there on business culture as well to endorse what we've already said to you during the past 20 minutes or so. That concludes our talking at you without actually being able to see you this morning, but we would very much like to hear from you now as to your particular questions, because you're all going to be in a great cross-section of sectors with a great cross-section of opportunities and challenges. While you're thinking of those questions, we have had a couple come in pretty early as we've been talking. The first one, not too surprisingly, is actually back on North Korea. I wondered if I could come back to Scott again on this. I think we saw it from here in Seoul, Scott, that the BBC was actually carrying a number of stories, including when the North Koreans evidently said to foreigners, you must leave South Korea for your own safety. It's all very well saying don't worry, but when you see something like that on the BBC, how are we supposed to react?
Yeah, it's understandable the way that some of these North Korean statements were reported by the international media, that people not here might be concerned. In fact, always the North Korean statements were expressed in a contingent way. If such and such happens, then Seoul will be turned into a sea of fire. But in every case, the contingency was never going to happen. And really, as I said earlier, the atmosphere on the streets here was very relaxed. British and other foreign business practitioners here just kept on with their business. It's fair to say that there were some international business visitors who postponed or cancelled business trips here when the rhetoric was at its highest. But there was really no need for them to do that. And at no stage did either the embassy here in South Korea or the embassy in North Korea adjust our travel advice to British residents or to British visitors. At no stage did we feel that there was any reason that people needed to reconsider their plans.
And no evidence, Scott, then, from your travels last week of the mobilization of North Korean forces? Quite the opposite?
No, in Pyongyang, people were being mobilized to replant grass verges.
That's pretty reassuring for everyone, whether we're in Seoul or the UK or somewhere else thinking about coming here. Thank you very much for that. We've received another question on our third country business work. How can UK companies fit into the value chains of Korean projects around the world? I'd probably ask Douglas and Steve for thoughts on this. Now, thankfully, the questioner has read something that we put out in various platforms on UK and Korean companies working together on the Korean nuclear project in Abu Dhabi, where KEPCO is the prime contractor and where 11 UK firms are now engaged in a whole variety of roles. That win-win formula we hope to replicate elsewhere. But the nuclear and the Gulf is not the full extent of what we're up to. We're happy to say. Douglas, any thoughts on where we'll be going next to take this initiative forward?
Well, we did the UK Rail Seminar in Singapore in November last year, and we had a dozen companies from the UK at that, matched by companies from here. Very, very successful. It looked at real opportunities in a number of countries in ASEAN, in Thailand, in Malaysia, Indonesia, and so on and so forth. We know that the companies from here do very, very well in ASEAN. They've built up great relationships over a number of years. And what we're trying to do is to put our great British companies into those value chains and trying to get them a certain percentage of the work, which the Korean companies win in infrastructure and investment in ASEAN. I just wondered if you want to say a bit more on that, Steve.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's tremendous opportunities for British businesses in partnering with Korean companies for large infrastructure engineering projects in third countries. I mean, the Korean companies are very active in the oil and gas, power, water, transportation, and other infrastructure. British companies, I think, have particular expertise on the legal side, contractual risk, specialist engineering. I also think there's opportunities for specialist technologies to feed into the various supply chains for the various technologies and plants being constructed. Also in our area, the environment, health and safety space, where really the UK companies, I think, have a lead internationally.
Just to add a little bit, I think if we look at countries that we'd like to go to in the future, obviously to try and do a real seminar in the Philippines, probably do that in November, and we'd really like to look at Burma as well, because we really think that that's going to be the great ASEAN market in the future. The companies from the Republic of Korea have already got offices there. They are working on infrastructure there already, and we'd really like to try and get involved in the value chains in Burma. Thank you.
Thanks, Douglas. I know from sitting alongside our investment team as well, there's great interest among the main Korean players now in British infrastructure, in energy, renewal, and high-speed 2 and so on. So I think for those in these fields, there's an exciting opportunity in the UK as well. Okay, those were the 2 questions we'd received early on in advance. I think we're now ready for some more. At this stage, perhaps back to Brent to coordinate that. Thank you.
Great. Thanks, Cliff. And just before I get into the questions, just as a reminder, you can still submit questions through the questions pane in your attendee control panel. And again, if you prefer to ask your question verbally to our presenters, you may raise your hand by clicking the hand-raising icon in the Grab tab on the top left of your control panel. If you have joined the webinar by telephone, please enter your PIN number, which can be found in the audio pane of your control panel, which I see most of you have, so that we may unmute your line and you may ask your question. So with that, Cliff, the first question that came through is from Donko. I was told that to open a business in Seoul, we would need to contact KOTRA, that's K-O-T-R-A in London. What kind of service can we get from UKTI when we want to open a business in Seoul?
Okay, I'll have first a crack at that. Cliff here. Thank you very much for the question. Well, KOTRA is the UKTI equivalent, reporting into the Ministry of Trade, Industry and Energy. They provide very similar services to the UK, helping Korean companies to do business overseas and to attract good quality investment into the Korean economy. We found their London office exceptionally helpful. We've partnered with them on many occasions where we have win-win objectives, and we hear very good stories about British companies being assisted by KOTRA when they're looking to make investments, from smaller investments to larger investments here in this country. So it depends on the nature of the inquiry. KOTRA is particularly well positioned to provide information on, for example, tax and other regulatory requirements, and also on setting up procedures, hiring staff. But in addition to the standard services that UKTI can offer you, which I'm sure we'll draw out during the course of the next 20 minutes or so, the British Chamber of Commerce here in Korea, whom Steve represents, is also a very willing educator of new companies to the market, particularly since they have such a reservoir of fantastic experience. Steve, any comments?
I just enjoyed that. We'd be more than happy to help those who are entering newly into the Korean markets. We can provide some introductions to perhaps those who are in the membership of the British Chamber who work in the same industry sector. Those who've been gone through similar issues in startup over recent years, we'd be happy to provide that support.
So I think KOTRA is indeed an expert, just in summary, an expert provider of information on the Korean government's incentives. But of course, the UKTI services, to come back to those, the Overseas Market Introduction Service, or just relatively lower level and informal advice, is readily available from us in the team. So we'd be delighted to take your email or your phone call and to provide, either by contacting Kotra or from our own reservoirs of information, any guidance that you need. It's not obligatory to work through Kotra. No, that's not quite true. Thank you. I hope that goes some way to answering.
Okay, great. Thank you for that. Our next question is a verbal question, and it's going to be from Amanda Groom. Amanda, I'm going to unmute your line. Please go ahead and ask your question.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Please go ahead and ask your question.
Hello. I run a media consultancy, and I have been working with the KCA for some time now. They are now talking to me about investing a significant amount of money into UK television programming, all of which is very exciting. My concern, one of the biggest issues we have is the difference, the cultural difference in terms of timing of decision making. And in so much as they're prepared to put money in, but they want these programs to be made instantly and broadcast very quickly. And of course, it doesn't happen like that here or in the US or in Australia or Canada. Is there any way in which I can or we collectively can lead the KCA and various sort of Korean government departments towards understanding that things don't always happen really quickly at this end? Because what I'm finding is, unless it happens quickly, the money is withdrawn because the internal accounting of the KCA has to happen within a certain number of months. Is there a way around this?
It's difficult, Amanda. Thank you for joining today. It was a pleasure to meet you when we did the Opportunity Career Roadshow in Lancaster House back in early February. And we know you've been out since, if we're not mistaken. Yeah, we spoke about this before, and I think, yeah, undoubtedly there is often a contrast in the timelines, in expectations between how we like to do things in the pursuit of quality and the best possible product or service, and Korean expectations, as Steve alluded to earlier, working all hours of the day and night in the pursuit of an impressively early conclusion, or meeting the deadline or smashing the deadline to impress one's clients. So I might turn to Steve for his experience of how to get around that. In short, from UKTI's point of view, before I do, we're very happy to position ourselves in the middle of a dialogue and negotiation, but only where I think the Korean party welcomes that. Sometimes in what is a very business-to-business oriented market, we sometimes find our participation a little unwelcome by the Koreans who consider it a commercial matter. Steve?
I think it's really, there's no easy answer, but it's clear that expectations have to be managed. So really bringing into early discussions timescales which are achievable from the UK side, putting that at the forefront of the discussion, so that your partners are very much aware from the outset what is a realistic timescale.
In Korea, they have a phrase called bali bali, and what that means is basically hurry up. So this is what we call a bali bali culture. It doesn't always fit well with our culture, but we do know that when they get the bit between their teeth, then they like to work very, very quickly. And as Steve says, it's something that really has to be managed. Thank you.
Hopefully, again, Amanda, that goes some way to answering your cultural question. We'd be very pleased to look into helping you in this particular instance. So look forward to contact. Thank you.
Okay, fantastic. Thanks for that. Our next question is a typed question, and that is from Simon. He asks, can you give in the webinar a good example of an SME from the UK and how you helped them win business within the Korean market? And subsequently, what were the steps that they took and how did they continue long term?
Yes, a good question. If I may take that, Cliff, again, initially, just simply because very fresh in my mind, Just yesterday I went to visit a local distributor, newly appointed local distributor, company in question, Hydra Engineering. Very happy for publicity. Their UK principal, Norbar, was a customer of ours last year. We provided, as part of our stock OMIS service, a distributor find and evaluation service. We put 4 or 5 distributors in brief profile to the UK company Norbar. Incidentally, they're in specialist precision tooling, sectors of great promise for them in Korea. And it was a great pleasure to meet both Norbar and Hydra just yesterday, and to hear that Hydra has managed to help Norbar to quadruple sales volume in the first 6 months of this year. There was an interesting side story to this scenario. The Norbar people were a little disappointed with the performance of a previous distributor, but they did manage to work their way out of that agreement without too much trouble and without too much penalty financially, and without losing too much momentum. So this is not a market where it's impossible to carry on doing business if you simply have one falling out with one representative. I look to my colleagues for other examples. We've certainly helped a lot of companies in the consumer goods space in a very similar way.
Yeah, absolutely. We worked with a cheese brand who are from the West Country, and they've done very, very well here. They came to our British Lifestyle event last year. They showcased their product, worked very, very hard at getting known in the market here. They came to Korea on a number of occasions, really followed up, and they've done very, very well here in Korea.
Hi, this is Scott here. I might just add that we've helped the cosmetics company as well. When they wanted to launch their product here in Korea, they used the residence, the ambassador's residence, to showcase it, and it's the sort of place that slightly unusual venue. We're able to draw people to events at the residence, which it might otherwise be hard to do if you were to go to a conventional hotel or something of that nature. So we can be pretty flexible in the ways in which we can help SMEs.
Okay, fantastic. Our next question will be a verbal question, and it will be from David Marsh. David, I've unmuted your line. Please ask your question.
Hi, good afternoon, everybody. I hope you can all hear me.
Yes, we can.
What I'd like to know is, what is the retail outlook in South Korea? Is it still as strong as ever? I represent a consumer goods product which is trying to enter the South Korean market, but we are seeing levels of protectionism that won't allow us in because we are a large outdoor clothing brand. And I'm hearing mixed messages coming out of the market of whether or not that is, some say it's good, some say it's not so good, some say yes, they're coming out. I'd just like to hear what you guys have got to say.
In my opinion, the retail market is really strong. I think that British brands are very, very well respected, but we've seen a leveling out in certain sectors and subsectors, of which one has been outdoor clothing, where there are very good brands here in Korea. So what we've found is that the outdoor clothing market is a good one, but it is rather saturated. And what I would like to do is, if you send us an email after this webinar, I'll put you in touch with my girl who does retail and fashion, and she will be able to give you a much more full answer than the one I've just given. Thanks.
Thank you, Douglas. If I can just contribute, Cliff, once more. We've done some work for a high-quality outdoor clothing brand out of the UK as well, and have a good relationship with their local partners. And they found the level of competition in the market pretty strong. And I think the incumbent players are also not unknown to work together in some instances to keep out the competition. And of course, the unique structure of the retail sector here, with the the big department stores holding great sway means that developing the right relationships, the right partnership with at least one of them would be your best way forward. But the spending figures at the luxury end of the market have held up very well in spite of the slowing of economic growth in Korea. So there is sustainable growth there, and we're seeing a great influx of Chinese tourists as well as Japanese who are falling away slightly because of the strength of the yen of late. And it's interesting as an aside to note that for those who might be able to position themselves in the duty-free networks, that Incheon, the duty-free setup at Incheon is actually the most profitable or revenue spinning in the entire world. It's quite some place for expenditure, not just Koreans, but all international travelers. So our perception is that we would agree with you on some challenges in accessing the market. You need strong local partnership in order to do that. But we would say that the trajectory is still very much upward, sustainably upward in the value of the market. There's more to come, and the FTA should help in just about every subsector.
Thank you for that. And our next question is a typed question, and it comes from Alex. And Alex says, we are a cosmetics/hair care business. How can we best introduce our products to relevant key distributors and specialists? Are there any trade missions coming up in that space?
We've helped a number of cosmetics brands come into the market recently, and one of the best ways to do that is to do an online marketing introductory service report with us, and we will hopefully be able to find you a partner who will be able to help you work with your brand. We've found that the cosmetics and we've found that the brands that have come to us for help have generally done very, very well here in Korea. As Scott said, recently we helped a cosmetics brand, a perfume brand, with a launch here just recently. So in general, I think that our Korean, the cosmetics brands that we have are appreciated here in the Korean market, and they generally do sell well. But the first thing that you have to do is to try and find a partner or a distributor who is going to help you get your brand into the market, into the stores, into the duty-free outlets, and perhaps also have an online presence, because online shopping is very, very big here. Thank you.
One further point just to add, Cliff, again, we do hear from some UK companies that the procedure for getting the necessary approvals from what's now a ministry, formerly the Korea Food and Drug Administration, is a little opaque or a little challenging for newcomers to the market. So, as Douglas said, the right representative can help you to negotiate that. But we also have good links into them, and we can help explain what those processes equal and what sort of evidence needs to be provided. Thanks.
Thank you. We have another typed question here from Tom. Tom is asking, saying we currently sell a range of dairy products directly to retailers, and he's looking for a source suitable distributor to work a partnership with. He wants to know if you can recommend what is the best approach and how UKTI can best assist in this process.
Yeah, I think the answer to that is very similar to the last question, is that we can help to find a distributor for you. We've got a number of large supermarket chains who are very prominent in the Korean market, and working with one of those is usually the best way to get your product into market. If you think about EMAR, they are very, very big here, and their buyers are actually really smart, and we can introduce you to their buyers, and they will look at your product and they will assess for themselves whether they think it will work in the market. But we have seen an awful lot of British dairy companies in the market recently, and in general they do very well.
Thank you. Cliff, that essentially wraps up that sorts all the questions that we have, both typed and verbal. So I'll go ahead and hand it back to you.
Thank you very much, Brent. Hopefully, ladies and gentlemen, you found the presentations, the contributions in some way informative and helpful. And if you asked a question, we hopefully tackled it reasonably well. But just to emphasize that we hope our contact doesn't end here. We'd very much like to hear from you all. In fact, in the process of signing up, we have your contact details, and we certainly endeavor to get in touch with all of you before today's session, and we will certainly be redoubling our efforts to get in touch with all of you thereafter. So whether you've actually presented your circumstance in the form of a question or whether you haven't quite managed to pose one of us today, we hope you found the session useful, and we would very much like to engage you in our multiple trade mission opportunities this year. And as Douglas mentioned earlier, we're a pretty mobile team. All of our 10 Korean staff will be back in the UK at various points during the year, and not just in London but around the country. So we very much hope to catch you one way or another in the UK or here in Korea.
Great.
The list is back on the screen. You see something there for everybody. If you've got a suggestion as to any sector in the market that offers good opportunity for the UK, we're very willing to consider concocting an activity in that regard. If there's good market opportunity and good expertise, good quality in the UK that the Koreans will appreciate, then we would endeavour to branch out into that sector too.
I will be back in the UK in October, and I'll be promoting a number of these missions. I'll be speaking at events in London, in Cambridge, and also in Manchester. So if you're in any of those areas, I would actually love to see you at one of those promotions. Thank you.
So then just to round up, I'd like to thank our panel for their contributions. Thank you, gentlemen. But thank you, most of all, our audience for tuning in and sticking with us over the course of the last 45 minutes plus. We will be doing more webinars. This is the first time we've tried it. Hopefully it's been good. We have a few learning points. But we'll be putting on some webinars, I think, to promote some of these opportunities in the individual sectors and missions, in the hope to give you more precise information on the market opportunity and how you can succeed here. So watch this space for our newsletters, for the information on our website, and for future webinars. And we hope to see you again and speak to you again in the near future. So have a good day back there in the UK. Take care. Bye-bye. Bye-bye.
Thank you, Cliff, and thank you, everyone, for attending today's webinar, Opportunity Korea, the Year Ahead. If you have any other questions, please contact Clifford Bebb. Once you leave today's webinar, you will receive a survey on the presentation, and we would appreciate it if you would complete that and provide your feedback. You will also receive a follow-up email within 7 days and details of how to view a recording of today's webinar. With that, on behalf of UKTI and our presenters, thank you for joining us today, and have a great rest of your day.